NBC's Andrea Mitchell has been covering this story from the very beginning, focusing on the investigation. Andrea joins us from our Washington, D.C. bureau this afternoon. Andrea, there's lots of information known about Osama bin Laden. We know that he is wealthy, of Saudi Arabian descent. Is he using his personal funds, the money that he has, in order to fund this campaign of terror?
We have just learned, NBC News has just learned, some startling information about how he may have raised new funds in order to finance this operation. German regulators have asked the FBI and CIA to help them with an ongoing German investigation into short selling on reinsurance stocks in the 4 days prior to the attack. Reinsurance companies are companies that are secondary insurers who take the big risks on a major disaster, for instance. And apparently German regulators were looking into whether a Munich reinsurance company, which holds a considerable amount of risk on the World Trade Center, was in fact sold short by associates of bin Laden. Now, there may not be an American component on this because it is not clear at all that the Munich Reinsurance Company trades on any exchanges here in the United States. But what would be an American component is whether they deposit money in American banks, whether there are American depository receipts for this Munich Reinsurance Company. There's also been reporting in the Italian press today that investigators in France and in Italy are looking as well at other secondary insurers in those countries. In essence, bin Laden, who, as you know, is of Saudi birth and is believed to be a big trader in European stocks, may be financing his terror activities by selling stocks short with the advanced knowledge, obviously, that a terror act is going to be committed on a particular day. This is pretty astounding, pretty sophisticated, and it tells you a lot, not only about the financing of this kind of operation, but about the sophistication of Osama bin Laden. Soledad?
Andrea, is it possible that U.S. regulators would in any way be able to track if indeed the funds are put in American banks, be able to track that down, trace it? Obviously, he's not putting the funds in his own name, but if there's a way to trace it, and then they could essentially take over those accounts, is that possible?
Absolutely. The FBI, the FBI and the SEC, as well as units of the Treasury Department, have very sophisticated ways of tracking money laundering. You'll recall some of the big investigations into international banking scandals in the late 80s and early 90s, as well as the way Iranian deposits back in 1979 during the hostage crisis were all put on hold. Iranian money that was in American banks. There have also been lawsuits and attempts under various American laws to try to free up some Iranian deposit money to pay off people who had been victims of Iranian-sponsored terrorism in Israel and other parts of the Middle East. So the international financial system is highly complex, but very well tracked by American regulators. This is pretty fresh information. The request from the European regulators only came in on Friday. The SEC and the FBI are working overtime on it, but they have only just begun this investigation.
NBC's Andrea Mitchell reporting for us from Washington, D.C. Fascinating information, obviously just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to what's going on financially. Thanks very much, Andrea.